Okay, today I've got Kobe on a school day. I've not had Kobe for a couple of weeks on a school day now. So I first started working with Kobe, I think he was 10 months, 9 months, 10 months. First started working with him last year, and he's now 12 months. So his testosterone's kicking in, everything's all fired up, and that's kind of interesting. So when I first started working with him, it was the socialization side. Just big dog, puppy mind, lots of energy, lots of enthusiasm when he met other dogs. So he was a bit full on. He was a lot full on, actually. And to begin with, it took a while for him to get the message. Roscoe snapped him a couple of times, gave him the right direction when he was being disrespectful, when he was too full on with the play, and we got there. We were certainly making headway with him. He was acknowledging my commands. He was acknowledging what was the correct way to play, the respectful way to play. He was certainly getting there. His work on the lead was also improving because he was very, very strong. So we were really making headway. Then we had Christmas, and I didn't see him over Christmas, and obviously the family weren't at work, so you've got all the excitement of Christmas. So you've got a slightly different sort of environment over Christmas, but out of the ordinary, and his behaviour when I had him on a school day after Christmas was quite bad. So it's kind of like he'd reverted, but he'd reverted and then some. So his behaviour was intense. I mean, he was just fixated on Roscoe in particular. Wouldn't leave Roscoe alone. And what was interesting is Roscoe wasn't actually being as tolerant with him as he had been before. Roscoe's behaviour towards him had very much changed. Now, I take an awful lot of stock on the way my dogs behave with other dogs because they see dogs all the time, and obviously I use them a lot for the socialisation, and for the nervous dogs or the over playful dogs. That's where Roscoe comes in, because he is so unreactive. He will stand his ground. He will clearly tell them what they can and can't do, but he won't take matters into his own hands. He works with me, and he always remains looking at me for the direction, even when he does give them the checks to let them know when they're doing something wrong. But the interesting thing is that first time after Christmas when I had Kobe is Roscoe was very quick to snap. He was still looking at me for direction. I wasn't concerned that he was going to overreact. It wasn't that. But his patience, it just wasn't, his normal patience didn't seem to be there. And at the same time, it made sense because Kobe was whining constantly. He seemed in a very anxious, heightened state of mind. Everything he was doing was very intense. And even when Roscoe was giving him the tellings off, and I was also backing Roscoe up and telling him no, he was falling on deaf ears. He just was not hearing anything. He was gone. His head was just in complete turmoil. And that's a clear sign of his age, because at that time he was 11 months, coming up to 12 months. So that's the testosterone kicking in. Now, with some dogs that will have quite a clear, intense change in the behaviour. With other dogs, not so much. So every dog's different. It's not breed specific, it's just every dog's different. And it can be phases that they pass through and then they calm down. So it was serious the way that Kobe was behaving, because I was trying to give him direction. Roscoe was giving him direction. And the poor guy he wasn't hearing it. He was just gone. His head was gone. There was nothing there at all. No communication with him. So it was a case of keep your eye on this, because, he could be due for his castration, get this sort of nipped in the bud. Now, the owners understandably were concerned about having him castrated at 12 months. They wanted to wait until 18 months, because the bigger the dog, the better it is, ideally, to leave them entire, because the testosterone helps the platelets basically glue together so they get strong bones. And when you've got a big dog, it's important to keep their joints as healthy as possible. So that's why they want to hang on as long as possible before they have him castrated. Understandable. My concern is that it will affect his behaviour a little bit, which it does sometimes, but it could just be a phase. So that's the bit that I'm looking out for today, because I've not seen him for a couple of weeks. And immediately after Christmas, obviously, it was quite intense. I did see him after then as well, and he he did seem to calm down. There was some communication there again. We were getting back on track. It was still intense, and he was still in a very heightened state. There was still a lot of whining, still wouldn't settle very well. Out on a walk, as long as we kept moving, it was kind of manageable, it was all right. In the house, because I have them back in the house with me and I teach them manners within the house as well, it's not just out on a walk. Yeah, it was a bit of a different story there. Shh, oi! Shh, no, no. And he was actually doing an awful lot of that, which isn't play. So, and he was only doing it to Roscoe, and so that's not good. So I did have to keep them separate. Not ideal, because that's, you know, the whole idea when I have them with me on a school day is they work with me as a pack, and we're all in the house together and we're out on a walk together. But you know, we work with what we've got. So that was the sort of the last couple of times I've had to be very, very wary, very careful with how he is with Roscoe. Like I say, when we're moving and we're walking, it's okay. As soon as we stand still, that's when you tend to get some of this more dominant behaviour from Kobe, and obviously Roscoe's going to stand his ground. That's what he's here for. So I'm not concerned about Kobe's socialisation as such. He's not an aggressive dog, but he's got raging hormones at the moment, and unfortunately it's not like a human. You know, this is intense. This is a drive that just is overwhelming. They cannot calm down from it. They're in a constant state of stress from it, to the point where their head's just a mess. You know, it's just this drive, this instinct, and it you know, it can lead them into a very, very anxious state. It can, I'm not saying it will do this, I'm just mentioning that it can sometimes also encourage a dog to just be a little bit aggressive, you know, because they have so much stress, they've got so much going on in their heads that it's an outlet. They're trying to control, they're trying, you know, it's just this crazy drive. They cannot think straight. It's terribly stressful for some dogs, and yeah, their outlet is aggression, so it can lead to that. I don't think it would with Kobe, that's not what I'm saying. It's just the you know, what happens with some dogs. So so that's what we're going through at the moment. So the message this morning with Kobe, because I've not had him for a couple of weeks, is that he's jumping up, getting a little bit more intense, and he's also gone very strong on the lead again. I can vouch for being strong on the lead. This way, I experienced a bit of that this morning. So yeah, I mean, I was having to stand still at every step, because he was just lunging forward in the car, whining constantly. So that's come back, and he's kind of recently been out about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes with them now, and it's starting to settle down a little bit, but it has been very intense again. He sort of went through a phase where he's very, very fixated with Roscoe, constantly trying to sniff him and be around him. A couple of times, as you saw just earlier, he did stand up, square up to Roscoe, and go to jump on his, you know, put his paws on his back, which is dominance behaviour. So I've got to watch them at all times, and it will be more, I have to be a bit more careful in the house. Oh God, I've got my legs there. It's his age, it's a phase, it's what we're going through at the moment. Unfortunately, really, while we're going through this stage, and you know, until he is castrated, maybe he's not, you know, been out on as many walks as he would normally be on the last couple of weeks. Maybe that explains. This way. Don't like them standing still too much. Maybe that will explain, you know, some of his behaviour sort of going a bit extreme again. Lots of things play a part. Lots of things. So we've got to consider all of that. We've got to consider the routine just lately, if the walks have changed at all, if they've not been as frequent or as varied. You know, you've got to provide stimulation for intelligent dogs like this. You've got to provide that stimulation. This way. If you don't, you'll start to get frustration, especially when you've got this age and hormones and testosterone situation going on. You've really got to... We've got to get that outlet, which at the moment is the walking, the running, but obviously we've got to be very careful with with how his behaviour is. It is normally when we stand still that you know, his head's not moving forward, so he starts to behave, you know, in this sort of more dominant way. I'm happy with this, with the stick. I mean, Roscoe generally does this anyway, gets the stick, it's like, okay, everybody play with the stick. You know, that's the way to play, not jumping on each other. So he's, yeah, we're doing okay. But I've certainly got to keep my eye on this one. So I got some nice photos because he's certainly one gorgeous looking dog. Shh, boys, you see the look, the eye contact. See, Roscoe's not relaxed with this. This isn't his normal relaxed posture. So it's not the normal relaxed play kind of posture that Roscoe's exhibiting there. So he's not overly comfortable. And that's just the energy that's coming off Kobe at the moment. That's his state of mind. So just keeping my eye on it. Yeah, I guess really there's only sort of so much I can do until we're at that stage where you know, it's time to be castrated, and then see how his behaviour changes, and then we can work on you know, getting him relaxed again and sorting his state of mind out a bit better. At the moment, this is just a moment in time that there's not really an awful lot I can do, I don't think, really. So yeah, I'll get some nice photos if nothing else. Okay.